So MGTOW men, welcome back. This is the first video that I've ever recorded outside, and I kind of just wanted to do it outside because this is a very weird time, and obviously nobody's really outside right now. It's desolate as we're in the middle of everything, but I've been really working on
tell out to all the motorcycles riding around in my town.
Writing a lot lately, and that's where a lot of my energy has gone as we've gone into the quarantine across the world. And I just encourage everybody to use this time to really work on something that they're not going to work on in normal life, because this is a unique situation where you obviously can carve out time for yourself in life to work on tasks that you really are passionate about. But the unique thing about this is that you don't just got the opportunity to do it because you want to do it and you make time for yourself, but you're kind of forced into it. So if you have any issues with the paradox of choice or
Sunrise Ready, check them out.
and narrowing down what you want to do with your time, this is the perfect time to really jump on it. So I'm in about 30 pages.
Tommy Sotomayor, check them out. You got
Terrence MGTOW, my view, kind of the principles, major words, major terms, just trying to explain everything and give kind of a background on it for everybody. And then I'm going to move into the testimonials. So that's what I'm doing right now. But I wanted to make a couple videos and a couple videos off of the content that I'm making. And one of the things that really hit me is talking to a couple of friends about MGTOW lately and our experiences and why we have these beliefs is I really would have no reason to look into this or feel as convicted if I did not have experience. So I remember being 16, I hit puberty at 16, and it was the first time I really was obviously interested in women. So I thought to myself, man, it would be cool for a girl to be interested in me. But I knew that it just wasn't cool if that was to be reality. So, you know, you kind of play it off, and at the time, even before you're red-pilled, you play it off and you think, I'm cooler if I don't express interest in this. There is a certain amount of power that comes along with it. And I thought to myself, you know, I had an option each year of high school or so, and I just brushed them off. I did not pursue them, going off of that feeling that there's something about being alone, of saying no to these options, even before I was red-pilled. But even though you have those internal convictions as a man, you don't necessarily have the convictions to elaborate or to explain about these things or to delve into them in more detail. And, you know, I thought at the time, you know, I'm going to have this family, I'm going to have 4 kids, all these crazy thoughts, all these crazy ideas. You get this rush out of it, but you don't think about the logistics behind it. You don't think about the other details that go into it. And you don't really have any understanding of what it is to actually date. You don't have an understanding or feeling of the dynamics about dating. You see it from afar. You see the dynamics of a marriage. You see somebody that's dating around you, and you think that you'd handle it this way, or you handle it that way, or you wouldn't come into these issues, but you would. You just don't know what it feels emotionally. And that really does a lot to a person if they're not aware of what they need to be aware of. And you think, you know, if you're a good person, if you do your part, the other person will respond, they'll reciprocate accordingly in that relationship. You assume that there's this unspoken understanding between you two at all times. Each of you knows each other equally. You know what each other are going to do. You know each other's values, and you're going to allow that person to act out according to those values, and you're going to be a team. You just think that it happens, but it doesn't, and biology plays a huge part in it, and a lot of the biological breakdowns, brain chemistry, all the things that we talk about at MGTOW, economics, just life, all those things that are really important to our philosophy. You don't take I mean, you see people coding before you make them. Fighting like this, You hear people get divorced all the time, but you think you're going to be just kind of into it. You think that you handle things. You'll put the effort in, you'll put the work in, and you'll prevent all these things. Before you realize what vampires are, you'll be able to find them all the garlic. You'll have the silver bullet. But at the end of the day, this isn't really reality, and it's important to be in that reality to date. And that's why a lot of times when I'm asked if I was having a conversation about whether or not I would want to be in those dating relationships in the first place, I wouldn't trade them for anything. I wouldn't trade them for anything because of what you learn, because of how instructive it is, and by how emotionally convicting it is when you think back on it. And this is why when you talk about red pill concepts to people that haven't dated, been married, or been in any type of relationship, they're really not going to take you seriously. And I know that a lot of you guys definitely have people that you can think of right now that you've brought this stuff up to, and they either don't take you seriously, or they think you're wrong, or they think you're crazy, or they think you're extreme, or they think you've gone about things in the wrong way. They're going to say these things. You're crazy, you're the problem, you're just exaggerating, you're heartbroken, you're scared, you're scarred, or you're simping. So all of these things. So when asked about my relationships and the problems they had, it was totally worth it. It was worth every penny that came across that I spent on them, and I spent in it to maintain it. And it's not the horror stories that you hear out there and that I've received, but it's enough for me to see the dynamics. And for me to look into these things, you kind of need a little push. You need a little nudging. I think that red pill is ready to go, but you need that enzyme sometimes of being in a relationship. And I'm not saying this to say that every man needs to have dated, every man needs to have tested the waters in order to go this way. That's not the case at all. Soldiers. But I think it gives you another extra bit of conviction. I wouldn't be making this content right now. I'm pretty convinced of that. I would not be making this content.
Good job.
The urge to do it, because I would have not known the impact that it would have had. And this is another, defense for MGTOW men having the best chances at getting at women. I'm not saying that they should go for them, but I'm saying in defense of those people that are saying MGTOW men are actually incels, it's quite the opposite. And I think this is true because MGTOW men have broken down female nature, and we understand why men and women act the way that they do, and why certain men succeed, and why certain men succeed in life and succeed in the sexual marketplace. And we understand that, as a man, she's going to want to pursue someone that's on their mission and succeed because it gives her a chance to be accepted and provided for. It's hypergamy. So a lot of these things really have a lot to say about what we break down in our philosophy and what we break down. And men push men to become better. MGTOW men are men pushing each other to get better. And we hold each other accountable, even when we're not talking. Once you learn about MGTOW, you just hold yourself accountable to the philosophy, to the other men you've talked to. I know I feel that way. And I know that these convictions have come because of my previous experiences. So I wanted to bring this up today because now that I've had a little bit more time to talk to some people and to reflect right now during this quarantine, really breaking down my conviction about MGTOW and what I think it can do for people and how I got here. So this is just one of those episodes. So
this happened the other day. There was a girl speeding, doing like 50k an hour over this. All right, well look, I'm just gonna kick it off from here. I know we're 15 minutes in already, so my apologies for the delay. Thank you to everyone who's been able to join and attend. I wanted to start this off first and foremost by thanking all of you men. So I wanted to thank all of you as the participants first and foremost, and I also want to thank all of our special guests today. So we've got Terrence Pop, we've got Joker, we've got Sandman, we've got Better Bachelor, we've got Chris in here just facing some technical issues. Chris can too. And at this point in time, we don't have any further guests. I am expecting Undead Chronic as well. So that's really it, you know. So we've all banded together today. I sent an email out to all of these incredibly generous gentlemen, and they've all responded straight away saying that they were in.
Wait, I thought there was checks for this.
Yeah, only in the 5 figures, right?
Yes, right.
That's right.
So yeah, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to you guys, just first and foremost, before anything else. And just give you my acknowledgement and my appreciation straight off the bat. So also a massive thank you to the sponsors that have made this happen. The biggest sponsor was Tony and Joel, and we also had Stacy and someone else. Yeah, I said Stacy. It was actually 25. One of the 4 major sponsors up until yesterday was a female. She's actually a lesbian over in the US who
I know who that is, yes.
Who is sick of dating women. So
Doesn't matter who you are.
You know, she gets it. She gets it.
Yeah.
You know, look, and this is not today going to be a woman bashing session. This is not going to be ripping on them. Look, there's going to be a bit of banter for sure. But this is more about helping you guys, because I know that this is crazy times right now. I know that we have challenges right now. Some people are thriving in their industries, which are pumping due to this coronavirus outbreak. But a lot of people are at home, including a bunch of us that are actually running this session today. So yeah, Ezra, my brother, thank you as well. A good friend of mine. He's also contributed to this. So Tony, Ezra, all right, now that I've covered that off, I just wanted to also give a special mention to a gentleman who couldn't make it today. His name's Kenneth Jolivet. He wrote Society Kills Men. It's a book, you can check it out online. I'm going to give all you guys a plug for all your books, like Coach Your Book De-Evolution and The Free Agent Lifestyle, and you know, sorry, I'm going to go let all you guys give a spiel at the end on how people can support all of you individually. But yeah, he's currently writing some children's books for boys to help them, you know, I guess understand that it's okay to be a boy and that it's totally normal and that that's how it should be.
Drugs are going and identify the buyers.
All right, house rules. I've gone through them. I'm not going to go through them again.
We're sending you in with dummy bricks containing GPS.
Just wanted to read a quick post to everybody, and it really encompasses the reason why part of the reason why I'm doing this today. This was written, love him or hate him. I know some of you aren't a fan, but this was a very poignant post that he put the other day, Paul Elam, on his social media. It says, a note from for the ladies from Dr. Paul. I've been hearing women say for far too long now that when it comes to talking about problems, and I quote, I don't want him to fix my problems, I just want him to listen to me. I just want to be heard. Ladies, I don't know what 10-cent self-help rag you read that in, but it's total bullshit. Look, men solve problems. It's what we do. It's what we've always done. Expecting us to listen to you drone on for 45 minutes about shit you have no intention of resolving isn't only a complete waste of time, it's downright rude. Men don't listen to each other while in problems. We identify what's wrong and go to work on a plan to set it right. Once we figure out that the man we're listening to is just jabbering about something with no interest in fixing it, we lose interest right away. Said jabberer will find himself without an audience and quickly. Any self-respecting man will do the same with you. And you know what? That's exactly the right response. So the next time you want to hold a man hostage to your endless stream of complaints du jour, do yourself a favor, especially him a favor. Take that shit to your girlfriends, have her bring your own Kleenex party and go to town. Try your best to outwhine each other, and whatever you do, don't try to fix any of it. That would spoil the moment. But when you do get ready to actually do something about the things that bother you, the man in your life will be happy to be there for you. Like I said, it's what we do. Solutions, they're a man thing, right? And I think all of us can resonate with that. You know what? We've just got another special guest that's about to duck in, and I'm gonna bring him into the mix without announcement. Particular gentleman that I wasn't expecting to pop in today, but I'm glad he did. Entrepreneurs in Cars is in the box, so if you'd like to pop your hand up, I'd be happy to help you have you join in this. So it would be a pleasure to have you. Cool. So
what
friend-
you were just explaining there is the second N word. One is a bad one. The second one is a nagger. It's a married woman.
Actually, there's another good word. It starts with an N and ends with an O. You know, the most powerful word in the English language. I talk about. So yeah, guys, let's kick it off. I'm going to start with the question that I had from my friend Tony. Now he's been a very generous donation for today.
Didn't think I was gonna make it.
And
Shut up,
he was
you
hoping to
ain't got
get some
time to
insight from you guys so that he could potentially, you know, work through one of the challenges that he's facing right now. Someone I only met a very short time ago, but he's actually. So what I'll do is I'm going to ask in this order, Coach, Joker, Terrence, and Sandman your insights on this, and then I'm going to give my 3 minutes worth. So I'll time this and I'll let you guys know when it's almost time, and we'll keep that format for any questions that kind of go throughout the process of this session. How's that sound?
Good. Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So I'm struggling. He says, I'm struggling with what I'm doing with my life at the moment, especially with not being able to do the things I normally get to do, like training. Maybe this donation will get someone to ask a question that can help me out with that. How do you have purpose when you can't do the things you normally do, like work or train? Also, how do I avoid the anxiety that comes with a broken routine? Coach.
Yes, indeed. Well, you know, listen, we got a lot of men right now. They're kind of lost in their sense of purpose since we've been put away in our little box and trying to figure out some things. But a couple of things about that. And mainly, I don't know why we keep seeing Pop. Is this why we seeing Pop on the screen the whole time?
He must have his mic going on and off.
Oh, yeah.
So Pop,
Oh, okay.
feel free to mute and unmute yourself, guys, if you see yourself keep popping up during this.
But one of the things that men have to understand is that we're entering into a new time. We've been talking about this in the Red Pill community that there's going, and I've been talking about it specifically, there's going to be an event that comes along that kind of puts everything back into context. But along with that, some guys are lost in terms of the relationship aspect, right? So they are having to find their way out of the relationship and use that time to repurpose themselves. This is the same opportunity. So you might not have your gym, you might have some depression, especially if you're used to being outside and working. Well, you don't have that now. This is a perfect time to redirect that, recreate yourself, put yourself back out there in a better place. Once we return back to whatever normal that is, whatever the normal society is at that point, when we get there, you have to make sure you're prepared well in advance. So hopefully, guys, I know a lot of guys, you're stuck inside. You might be swiping on dating apps, trying to find some sort of purpose to, you know, at least talk to women. But what you should be doing is putting your time into doing the best that you can to prepare yourself for your new normal. This might go on for another month or two. And some people don't understand it. They don't accept it. They want to be optimistic about it. And, you know, I'm certainly not the best optimistic person. However, you have to accept the conditions that we're in. And if he's in this condition after day 10, he's got to understand there could be 60 more days of this. And this is your opportunity in this 60 days to redirect yourself, repurpose yourself so that when we come out of this, you're ahead full steam. So I get it. I understand where he is.
Want me to just hop in here, Sydney, or you want to call
Go
us
for
up?
it. No, go for it. I mean, yeah, if you guys feel the flow, just go with it.
Right on. Well, when you look at somebody, take for example, someone that's been put in prison as a great example, their life has been taken away from them. But what are they doing while they're in there? Number one, they're educating themselves, looking up things online, reading books about ego, about ways to understand other people and how they think, understanding what's bothering you and what's on your mind, and learning how to process that is a big portion of it. The other thing is, obviously, when you're in a 5 foot by 5 foot cell or whatever else, is there are ways that you can still work out. Now, whether you have a chin-up bar over the doorway, or whether you get down and do what they call a prison push-up or prison sit-ups, which is starting with doing 10 push-ups and then 10 sit-ups and then 9 push-ups, 9 sit-ups, 8 push-ups, 8 sit-ups. I don't know who you are, but that will wear you out. There are ways to still get that energy burnt off of you. But in the same token, you also have to look at life is, especially for men, life is not going to be a smooth transition all the way through. And the more times that you come up against things that are adverse and things that make you have to think on your feet and things that are going to have to make you change your direction, the more nimble you're going to be, the more you get used to it, the more you kind of get where if something big happens, you can go, man, I just got to roll with the punches. And so take this opportunity to find ways, be specific about what's bothering you. I feel alone. Look up ways that you can maybe work past that. I can't work out. Look at things that you can do in the small confining space that you're in to take care of that. Look at things that will specifically solve your specific problem. And the more you get used to doing that, the more you'll be able to learn how to navigate it and still be in the comfort zone.
By the way, guys, so like Coach and anyone else who's just muted themselves, just raise your hand back up so I can unmute you at the end of the session, just so that it brings back up to the top of the list for me. Makes it a lot easier to manage. Cool. So if the other co-hosts can raise their hand with the mute, there we go. No, not anyone who I've invited. Like, so you put your Sandmans and your Jokers and whatnot. If you've muted yourself, put your hand back up. But anyone else, just leave your hand down until it's question time. All right, go ahead, Sandman.
Yeah, I think with working out, when I was younger in high school, I'd go and hit the gym at lunch, but I also had my own gym at home. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with buying some equipment, buying some weights. You can get stuff for like $200-300, put it in your house, put it in your spare bedroom, put it in your living room, wherever you need to use it, and do it that way. Another thing to deal with regards to purpose, always have more purpose than you can accomplish. That's something that I've always found valuable. Because, I mean, if I can't do something, well, I got something else I want to do. I mean, my life is pretty much the last maybe 5-10 years been about picking the things that I really want to do. And there's so much I want to do and I can't do it all. And I have regrets in terms of not being able to accomplish everything I want to accomplish. And if you can do that and then, life shrinks a bit, then you have no problem. You don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I guess for me, I love what you said right there, Sandman. Have more purpose than you can achieve, right? And I guess that's really the tough bit, right? Getting to that point where you actually have more purpose than you can achieve, like that's tough, that's a challenge.
But you have to do more and more of these things like voyages of self-discovery. You have to put yourself outside your comfort zone. You got to try new things, and you'll find along the way there's a lot of things you like, and then you'll have that toolbox full of things that you really enjoy doing, and that's it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's really the key, because if you kind of go in and you go, well, everything that I've been doing is like, I don't have that anymore, and so what's next, right? Something that I
get in.
What's that?
Pop was trying to get in. He had his hand up.
RAD. Let's let Redunculus.
No, it's Joker.
JOK. Here we go. No. Sorry, I can't see the.
No worries.
When I say raise, by the way, when I say raise your hand, there's actually a little button on your Zoom program there.
Let me just jump in and quickly say there is going to be a point where a lot of you guys may end up losing work during this point, and it's not something that you were planning on. So when something like that happens, maybe it's now a time that you are forced to stay at home and you're not allowed to do what you were doing. maybe now is a good time to take some self-assessment and say, all right, if I'm going to go in a different direction, or I want to go in a different direction, can I do so now? I mean, it's going to be maybe in some cases a forced fresh start. So maybe this is a good opportunity to decide to wipe all the chess pieces off the board, set it up new, and start from scratch again.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we have Hammerhand back, so I'd love to get your 3 minutes on this, man.
Well, I apologize for coming in late here. I had a setting here on the code. It was incorrect, so I had to go in there and turn it up.
Voodoo 1, this is Zeus.
Can you hear me?
Fishing village.
I can hear you clearly.
Outstanding. First off, I want to say a big thank you to everybody that showed up for this. I think it's very important. And in this very trying time, you know it's going to be us, you and I, and everybody else that looks like us, that's going to be counted on to keep the world going. I happen to work in one of those fields, and along with medical workers, food suppliers,
We're looking for
people
pig
that keep the
carcasses.
parts chains
We
going.
need to confirm our suspicions that the gorillas are
trying
trapped
times.
through the livestock.
Like these guys were saying, if you're losing work and you're being put in a position that you're unaccustomed to, it's a very good time for self-reflection. How did you get here? Why are you here? What could you have done better to make your life go smoother during these kinds of times? I look around me, I'm good. I've got food, I've got ammunition, I've got guns, I've got water, I've got everything that I need. I've got enough to last me for 6 months. Probably should be a year. That doesn't mean that you're a full-on lunatic or a prepper, man. And I don't consider preppers or people that think that way to be lunatics. I mean, you only have to have eyes to see and ears to hear to understand what's going on out there.
Yeah,
I think it's also important to stay one step ahead of this thing. I heard about, I won't say the word. I heard about it at the end of January, and then I was preparing, and people looked at me like I was absolutely insane. You know, what's he doing? He's buying like 3 months worth of food, 6 months. What is he doing? Like, what is this? And over time, in terms of like preparing, I thought I was always one step ahead, and then once the market started to fall, I went and tried to get some more precious metals, and the precious metals dealers, I got the last little bit I could find, and then it all disappeared. I think, sure, losing income is a bad thing, but you have to worry about losing your life savings too. I think a lot of people haven't really been thinking about that, and you've got to really, like, a lot of people are like, I'm going to ride out the market, and I'm like, well, if this goes on for 2 years, can you ride out the market? And my feeling is that governments around the world, they're going to help certain people pay their mortgages and their rent, and so they're going to help out small businesses. But a lot of people have to prove that they're you're under hardship. So the government's going to say, well, you got money in this bank account, you got to spend that first before we give you anything. So I think a lot of people need to really be aware of that and not think, oh, the government's going to rescue me even though I have assets in the bank. They're going to just give me assets to replace what I'm spending. That may not be the case. No. And I think a lot of people need to be worried about that. And I think if this goes on for a couple of years, it's going to be a huge wealth transference, because like the government in the United States is already talking about allowing people to sell their retirement funds. And if people have to spend their retirement fund over the next 2 years, what happens after 2 years? A lot of their IRAs are going to be completely cleared out, and a lot of people are going to be completely broke. So I think, just you try to stay one step ahead of this. And that's all I got to say.
And they're going to be completely dependent on Big Daddy as well.
That's what they want. In many cases, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah, exactly right. So, I guess the other thing I was going to say, just to finish off, I know we kind of went on a little bit of direction, and everything that everyone said is very valid, and I think it's really cause for reflection. But with respect to not being able to go to the gym, one thing that a lot of people don't think of when the gym is unavailable is calisthenics, which is essentially using your body weight. For anyone who doesn't know how to spell it, it's CALISTHENICS. And all you gotta do is just jump online and do a super quick search online, DuckDuckGo, wherever it is, to find calisthenics exercises for beginners, intermediate, advanced. And all of these things, including pull-ups, which you mentioned before, I think.
The planks, there's a lot of core exercises that you can do. There's plenty of things that you can do. I mean,
100%. That's exactly right. Exactly right. So I guess that's what I'll finish up on with that. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about I know that I'm opening Pandora's box here. I know that we're gonna go on a tangent here, but I'm just gonna ride this wave with you guys. So, you know, what do you foresee is the changing phase? What's next for us as a society and as men? Let's keep it to 5 minutes each, and we can rotate our 5 minutes. Start with you, Coach.
Oh, it's on me. Okay, so, you know, I'm the prognosticator. I call myself Coach Adamas every now and then, but I'm not saying anything that's pretty much not what other people have been talking about here in this particular red pill idea. I think that people should buckle down for the next year or two. It's going to be pretty much a dynamic change on what we've been conditioned, especially as older men. We've been through this. So we've been through 9/11, we've been through Y2K, all right, we've been through the recession in 2008. So we were able to recreate ourselves. And once you're able to do that, that's fine. In terms of relationships, a lot of us would love to think that women are going to just return to the kitchen, they're going to dynamically change their opinion. They're going to do that now. They're doing that now. They're going to get everybody up, text message and all that stuff. And for them, it's about security. Whatever is going to provide them security in whatever time of comfort or discomfort, that's what's going to happen. But I won't see a dynamic change because once we come out of this, they're going to forget that. And that's why I tell guys to have a long memory. They're going to forget all of that stuff. They'll find their safety net. And a lot of you guys right now, you know, I call them monkey sims. They're going to impregnate someone. They're going to take one in. They're going to marry one. And then when time for comfort comes, they're going to back and claim their independence. So you just have to be prepared for that. This is why we try to educate men as much as possible. Going forward, if you look at the next 5 years, we'll be right back where we were probably on March 1st, okay, before everybody really recognized the threat that we were in. So 5 years should clean it up, but I think the next 2 years will be it'll be tight, because if you remember 2008, when that recession hit, a lot of people in 2005, I worked in mortgage. I left coaching, worked in mortgage for about 6 months. So I saw people doing all of these home loans, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. They were doing stated income, stated asset. They didn't have to prove anything. So of course, the housing market.
You at the high school?
I was.
The prices appreciated like crazy, and everybody thought it was going to be that for 10 years. Well, some people recognized that that was not going to be the case, and they tucked away a little bit, and they were able to ride out. In 2010, they were fine. Well, the normal person, it took them to at least 2012 to recreate themselves and get themselves back to stability. Same thing with these guys. We talk about the preppers, and we make fun of them. But I guarantee you, by about 2021, we'll be fine. We'll be ready to march forward. I think the regular person who didn't go to the grocery store, all right, who didn't prepare, who used their retirement, who had to depend on the big daddy government, they're going to be in for the shock of their lives, and it's going to take them 2 or 3 years to dig out of it. That's what I see.
100%. Yeah.
Since I'm next anyway, I'll piggyback on that and just say that part of the problem that it'd be nice, and I even said this in the last couple of videos, it's nice to think and imagine that all of a sudden, as Coach said, that we're going to be supported and we're going to be looked at as the strong providers, and we work through all the tough times and so on and so forth. But in a lot of and I don't remember the specific European countries, but there were women that were marrying the men of the enemy that had conquered them. I mean, you know, we've all said it many times. Women don't run the race with you. They wait at the finish line and marry or try to get with the winner. I think the same thing is going to happen here. Now that they're a little bit scared, they're going to be latching on, and we can all have the jokes about the posts out there. But the truth of this is, when it's over, they're going to go right back to try to better themselves, to get ahead of the game. They're going to swing right up to the next guy that's a little bit better, a little bit more money, a little bit more comfortable. And so I don't think there's going to be a change. The nice thing is, none of us are really going to be affected by what's going on. You can feel a little more appreciation, and you can rub a little bit of salt and a few more wounds, but the truth of it is, nothing's really changed when it comes to us. Now, the other thing, and I think most of the gentlemen that are on here now as hosting, at least, most of us are a little bit older. I know that you're a little bit younger, Sydney, but you know, a lot of us, you can be a prepper for 3 to 6 months with some gear in your house. But what you should be doing, especially if you're a guy in your 20s or 30s or even early 40s, is being a prepper with your finances. Okay, so right now, and I talk about it, there's a couple shots here and there, but I got an old school bus out there I'm building. How can I do this without having to work? Because I saved and invested for decades for this. You can't just wake up one day and say, I'm gonna run around the world. So prepping comes to your income, your salary, your savings, your long-term investing. You've got to get all of that ready. And it's easy to not do when you're in your 20s or your 30s, because you say, hey, I've got forever. Well, what happens if you ran into this and you hadn't done anything? Now you are the same as everybody else, hoping you can get some money from the government, hoping you have enough to buy some groceries, and you have no advantage over everybody else. But if you prepare for your future, both financially and with your well-being, then when something like this happens, for me, literally, the only difference is I don't go to the store and shop. I shop online now. Other than that, nothing's changed. So plan ahead for any contingency, but if you have enough finances behind you, it makes all of that planning that much easier.
Absolutely.
Being ready for financial issues. If you look at what's happening with currencies, if the markets go down, there could be some sort of currency crisis. So I think it's not just a matter of getting your finances in order, but it's also about having actual money, which is gold and silver to some extent. You know, maybe 5%, maybe 10% of your net worth and something like that. Because we definitely are entering a period where if this goes on for a couple of years, you're going to see a lot of women pushing the government. They're going to be pushing for more government. And then I fear that we're going to head towards communism.
They've always pushed for more government.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, this happens every 4 generations. You know, we're entering this period. These two authors, Lowe and Howe, they talk about the 4th turning, and they talk about every 4th generation has a crisis situation that they deal with. The last time was the Second World War. Before that was, you know, the Civil War. Before that was the Revolutionary War. So I completely agree with Pop when he's been talking about this the last couple of months in a lot of videos. So, I mean, look at Pelosi. She's trying to push for digital cash, so no more cash. So, I mean, I think Pop can jump in if he wants. And
Well, I am a proponent for the United States. I am not a fan of socialism or communism. Not only does it not work financially or economically, but it also fails the human race, the cost of lives, pain, and suffering every single time. Okay, with that, and on a side note, you know, I am a strict capitalist, but I
Place charges and prepare to blow the door.
Some of these super corporations having just a little bit too much influence over the people who run the show up at the White House and in the Senate and the House. That's a problem. So I mean, I know there's a lot of guys out there who stand down or stand by idly and allow communism to take over without, you know, there being either a small, medium, or major amount of bloodshed and turmoil. Just saying.
Now, Pop.
Doors down. Take the target out.
Under chronic.
That much blood loss, right? You gotta assume the average commie's like 110 pounds.
We're sending a message.
They got no food. You just gotta wing them and they'll bleed out.
Watch my six.
Yeah.
Destroy their server.
And then
Just
for the
ask
last
Kurt if
guy,
they're gonna remember it.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you double up on your time on that one, just to like throw a new
Just to
exercise.
go back real quick. Like, I used to be a high functioning individual. Every 6 months in special operations, you had to pass this rigorous, test. If you didn't make it, you're out. And and I also fought professionally. I worked my way up to a shot at a world title. FFK, it was an FFK, so I lost the 10th round TKO. But when you work out that hard for that long, when you all of a sudden take it away, you find yourself spiraling down into the well of depression. So I have to figure out ways to take myself to that level once in a while to dig myself out of the depression hole. Because your body gets used to the endorphins of working out so at a high level, and all of a sudden that's taken away. It's really hard to replace. And that's the challenging part, is finding a way to replace that.
Yeah, well, that's the exact challenge that Tony is facing right now. So I really appreciate you actually. Because I don't know if any of the other guys in the box right now have been at the level of performance that Bob has, but that's definitely something that I've never been at the elite level that you have, Bob. So I can't speak from that experience, but I really appreciate you doing so.
Anytime.
So who haven't we heard from in this one? We haven't heard from me yet, have we?
Who cares?
All right. Well, I'm going to jump in because I've got some very interesting insights when I've been doing. I've been on the phone for hours and hours and hours collectively to different people, just sort of going on philosophical tangents. And I guess the conclusion that I've personally come to is that the world's never going to be the same again. We are going to move more towards working from home, because hopefully companies coming out of this are going to go, man, I don't know when the next one of this kind of shit's going to hit. So how do we mitigate against this cost wave? How do we build up the bank? And by building up the bank, we're also building up our network and creating confidence in us. So we're the ones that people buy into when something like this happens again, to give us more capital to recover. So I've kind of gone like 10 steps ahead. Like, what's possible? Like what are the possible repercussions of this? And I like to call this consequential thinking. And what I see is that as a lot of places start to implement more working from home, and for example, in Australia, they've been doing it for a while now. It's been very successful, but you're going to get a lot of companies start to get lazy. And a lot of these smaller ones are going to go, well, you're working from home now. You've got a laptop, right? Yeah, I've got a laptop. Yeah, no worries. Just use your laptop. That's fine. They lose the control over their intellectual property the moment that their intellectual property is hosted on another person's hardware. If that hardware is infected with viruses, that's potentially massive breaches. I think cybersecurity is going to be the next industry that's going to explode. And if there's anyone watching right now that does enjoy technology, that does enjoy coding, that thinks that potentially this might be a real opportunity for them to get into something like this, I would definitely suggest getting into coding, because I think that's going to be the next massive industry. I also think that if you get into fitness and personal training, that is going to be another industry, because right now, if we keep going down this path, there's going to be a huge amount of people that are going to be becoming obese. Right? And you think
there already is, man. 60% of Americans, and probably the same thing with Aussies and everyone in the UK, 60% are already overweight.
But this is my point, right? Like, you think it's bad now? Wait and see what happens when everyone's working from home. When everyone's like, because no one's getting even a base level of exercise. They're not walking to work. They're not walking from work. They're not walking to or from the bus. They're not doing the quick 50-meter run to catch that next bus. They're not doing the little quick shuffle down the escalators, feet running to get to the next train, right? No one's thinking about this.
Well, Sydney, let me ask you this while you're thinking about this though. With telecommuting and all that, now with cybersecurity, I can see the difference because corporations obviously may be American and want to only use American workers with security clearance when you're working on delicate things. But look what they've done with AT&T, a lot of the cell phone, the cable companies, where you pick up a phone for customer service and you're dialing over to India. So if more and more things are going to go to working remote, what keeps all of this stuff from going overseas? And poof, it's gone, and they're paying somebody, instead of an engineer for 80 grand, they're paying an engineer over there in India for 30, because that happened at my company that was working on network and things like that. I would actually counter that. I think, and not to disagree with you, but if you really want to kind of make yourself safe in all scenarios, you need hands-on. What is a hands-on job that pays well? A plumber, if you work for yourself, if you work for somebody else, they get paid $100 an hour. Now, maybe as a plumber, you keep $40 of that, and the 60 goes to your boss. But when you own your own business, you get 100 out of 100, minus bills, all that stuff. Plumbers, electricians, welders, mechanics, the things that require hands-on, they're not the most glamorous jobs. However, since everybody's been running off to college thinking that that's the escape, because you're supposed to get great dream jobs with any degree, the truth is there's a shortage in the blue-collar jobs, and I think they're going to come back because they're the ones that can't get shipped out, and as such,
correct,
you're going to get paid well for that too.
Actually,
but also look at blue-collar jobs. I think what's deterring a lot of guys from getting involved in them is that it's hard to find a mate when you're doing a blue-collar job, because women don't seem to want plumbers and electricians. So, and I've seen videos and articles about this woman in New York, and she's a lawyer. She makes, I don't know, about 60, 70 grand a year, and she says she has to settle for a guy who makes $130,000 a year as a plumber. So when you hear stories like that, I mean, what do you say to that?
Well, the challenge is, though, let's think about this. I'm a plumber, but I make more than her. I'm not good enough because she's higher educated. Okay, I've got a gender studies degree that's very similar to hers, but I make nothing. Well, I'm going to have better education, as well as have more money, as well as 6 foot tall and muscles. And then by the time you start really doing all this, by the time you can really find one, you say, "Ooh, boy, I had to work really hard to get her." How long are you good for anyway? 5, 6 years till she piles on you like 50% of the other women walks in have her money and kids. That's why, and many times, that you have to either give up all of you to try to get a woman, or you say, "I'm going to do what I want," with the understanding that no matter what you do, it'll never be good enough. So you're either going to end up backing yourself into a corner, being frustrated and angry and hating the world because you've done everything right, yet you can't get this girl, or you can just say, "You know what, screw it all, I'm gonna do me." And if you're, let's face it, if you're Chad enough or whatever, and you got the right attitude, that's still gonna get women. So you may not get a spouse, you may not get a family, you may not get kids if you're a plumber, but in the same token, if you're in athletic shape and you're even halfway decent looking, and you got a couple nickels to rub together, and you're happy, and you're in a good place mentally, that'll get you as many short-term women as anything else will. So maybe don't worry about long-term dating. And I'm a big advocate of 6 months and you're out no matter what. So worry about what you do in life, chase your dreams, your money, your hobbies, do everything you want. You'll bump into one. You have a little bit of fun, and then but worrying about what everybody's going to do, what women's going to do, you choose X or Y or Z, it's a dead end. Every time it's a dead end.
The chats, right? I'll walk in the room and I fucked 3 Asian freaks last night. I'm just worth that much more. You're basing your value off what bitches think. Do people actually think what bitches think is worth anything? No. So, you get a lot of shaming, at least on the internet. It's the whole, you're incel. You're a person. Your holding the tick sideways. I'm just doing it for my own not really, if you don't have a goal behind you, like a fire within you, what's your de facto, what are most dudes gonna do? Oh, I want to go get pussy. And either they don't get it and get super pissed, they get upset, or they do get it and they realize at the end of the road, man, that just wasn't worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm starting to see a lot of this, you know, as you were saying. I think the best thing to do, you know, as a lot of you have already mentioned, focus on yourself, work on yourself, build yourself. Don't sacrifice what's important to you for the sake of potentially having a girlfriend or having sex or dating someone. You know, do focus on what's really important to you. Because if you don't do that, then there's just literally no point. And you're also, if you're focusing too much on the partner you're with, if you do decide to date, here's the thing. As you're listening, the more sweet, the more compliant it tends to be. That's the explanation that most guys have, including themselves. And the thing to understand that becoming too compliant and too much of a, oh, I'll do whatever you want to do, then you're lowering your market value. And
But it's a natural gap that occurs every time.
It is a natural gap, but guys need to be conscious of this gap and prevent that from happening. That's, in my view, what I see. Stand up who talks about this in his book. Verification scale, and essentially what that is, right? So the perfect dynamic, in my view, that I've witnessed is where the male is the alpha. And the female, say the female can't you know, be straight at her job and be in a alpha position, whatever, like that's fine. You know, I know a lot of women who are, and they're very successful, and that respect to them, you know, respect to anyone who can hold it down at that level, right? But when you actually get to a point where you start to become less alpha, then you start to fail the shit tests, which make them frustrated on a subconscious level. They don't even realize it. This is the dynamics of men and women, right? And then she starts to take up the slack. Before you know it, she's the alpha and you're the beta. You're the beta.
Well, I can tell you why that happens, at least in my opinion, why that happens, is that over time, and I've got videos upon videos of this, women naturally lose interest. The longer that you date them, the longer that you're living with them, the longer that you're married with them, there's no surprises. Butterflies and excitement, tingles, they don't count anymore. And then on top of this, let's say you take her to McDonald's and she wants better. So you take her to, I don't know, the next restaurant above that. Pretty soon you can go to the fanciest place in town. Night after night. But that's still not good enough. You need more change, you need more original, you need more, and it's always looking for something new, something entertaining. It's because she's figured you out. The minute a woman figures you out, they're bored. So the only way you get away from that is, and once they get bored, they get less interested. And what do they do when they get less interested? They start to drift away. And as that gap happens, the man can feel that. He feels that she's not as attractive. And he starts grasping at straws, trying to do more and more and more for her, to pull her back in. All he's doing is pushing her away. That's why at least me personally, it's a point of no return where you have to now put down a mountain where a new guy can just put down a pebble because he's unknown and mysterious and interesting and sexy and dynamic, and she doesn't know anything about him. So you have to move mountains as the known man, where a new guy can just come along and barely do anything. That's why short term works so well, because you don't get into that because you're never there long enough that she's figured it out. How many times have you noticed that? And sorry, I'll stop here. I know I'm rambling on. How many times have you noticed that the girls you're not interested in stick around through everything? It's because you're not putting the effort in. The ones you love and do everything for, they're not. It's because you're moving towards them instead of holding your place. They start to separate and toss.
That is 100% correct. 100%.
I think for guys, we have to not care, and women have to care. But over time, we care more, and they care less. And then we have to kind of fight our own nature. So even if, as a guy, you're fighting your own nature, and you're not giving into the temptation to become a nice guy, sin mangina, It doesn't mean that the woman is not going to give into her nature to become, you know, to want to dominate that relationship more and actually, you know, start to care more about what's going on. So, I mean, you don't, it's not just, it's like two moving bullets, right? If they're not moving in the same direction, but if you're still moving in the direction you originally started in, but she moves in a different direction, I mean, you can't control what direction she's going to move in. So it's just too many variables for it to last long term.
It's like the truck driver who puts the homeless girl through college, and then when she becomes a law professor, she doesn't want to be with someone who's a truck driver.
She's doing something better.
Exactly. Unbelievable.
One of the things I think that we have to remember, we're going to be considered so ahead of the curve because a lot of these people are going to figure this out, but they're figuring it out now, right? They're getting this education about women and relationships and all this stuff, and they're Googling information like all of us did, and we ended up at Sandman Channel, right? At one point, we had to figure out what was going on, and we started Googling things, and this is how a lot of men arrived, because if you typed in MGTOW, that's what came up first. But there are going to be men that are going to try to figure out their way. Colleges are going to start not being an option. They're going to start looking at IT. They're not going to look at blue-collar careers, and women aren't going to want them. Their wives will divorce them. A lot of men will be married and lose their jobs now and have to find a new way, and they'll get divorced. So our content, we're going to be so ahead of the curve that we're mind-blowing. Remember the first time you heard like Tom Likas or you know, Pop, you know, all of us? When we heard it, it was like mind-blowing. And we forget it because we do this every day, but a lot of guys are coming in this next year or two, and they are going to be where we were 2 years ago or 5-10 years ago, depending on who you are. So we got to remember that and be able to provide answers for that.
There's a lot of, but there's a lot of danger with regards to what age you actually get this information given to you at. I mean, I don't know if you've been listening to Spetsnaz and Human. They did a talk recently where they were talking about guys getting this information while they're still in their mid to late teens, and then they become completely nihilistic. They stop caring about life. I mean, I got it at the right time, which was my mid-30s. I wish I'd got it at my mid to late 20s because that would have been the best possible time. But you can't control when you're going to kind of discover this information. And I think we kind of have to figure out what the consequences are going to be of 18, 19-year-olds learning about MGTOW and then, you know, starting to give up on life entirely. I mean, how is society going to deal with that? How are they going to deal with that? Anyone want to pipe in on that?
Well, I think the tough bit is right now that guys are already being force-fed bad experiences at a much earlier age than they ever have before. Like I've got in the chat here right now, Red Talks says, by the way, thank you to Red Talks for the nation. It says there was a university that made hitting women banned because a girl was afraid of tall men. The exact same men that the majority of everyone else is attracted to. So like this is the kind of control that's being enacted upon men at a very early age. So well, I think we're at a point where we actually need to know this stuff. Yes, it's going to make a lot of people nihilistic. People like us that have got the experience that can articulate how to actually work through this and how to create the best life for ourselves. That's all we need. People like us, it's like, what have they got to look forward to? You know, what a lifetime of misery anyway. Like we may as well give them the right tools to help them make it through.
I try to get them at 18.
18?
Because I spent...
Hey, are you talking about guys or girls?
I try
to...
Quality bird. I'll give you that.
You're just laughing at my life.
He started red. Oh my God!
Well, you know,
You got him blushing. Yeah.
That's so
My
good.
dream is coming true.
33 years in the Army, thousands and thousands of guys show up right at a basic in AIT, and you know they just get wrecked. They just run through the ringer, and then I hear a lot of them suicide. You know, 5-10 years down the road. You know, it's just terrible.
Well, we deal with people.
But if they had the ammo, you know, to say, oh yeah, this is actually a bad situation, why not do this? Maybe I could save a few more guys.
Yeah, like I understand this, and I know why it's happening, and you know, I heard Coach talk about this, I heard Sandman talk about it, Chronic talk about it, I heard Pop talk about it, I heard Chris talk about it, I heard Hammerhead talk about it, I heard Sydney talk about it, you know what I mean? So this is
Pop, what's the difference between red pilling someone at 25 versus 18, from your opinion?
Well, by 25, you're on the hook for 18 to 25. You catch these guys at 18, you start making any deliveries right to the warehouse. You need to be aware of what can happen to you.
yeah, learn how to play the game early.
Yeah.
Then it depends on where they're living. Like where I'm at, people can barely afford to have kids in their late to 20s, early 30s, so they can be red pilled a lot sooner. So again, maybe you're onto something there. Maybe, you know, if they're in the military and they're in a small town or in a small base somewhere where it's relatively remote, they can't afford to have a family. So yeah, you're right. That makes total sense.
I think the small towns are even worse as well, because you know, what else is there to do but smash, you know?
Well, if you think about it, some of the people that I've talked about in terms of how women are trained, they know this stuff at 13, 14, 15. Like, this is their dream. Their dream is to get married, and they know at the end of the day, they could turn it on its head by just, they could just say, well, I changed my mind, I met a new man, a new pebble came along, and this guy gave me a mountain, I like this pebble. So they're kind of prepared. We're not as prepared, because we still live under this fantasy world. So I can get why an 18-year-old person could feel like they get an advantage by getting this information. But if they don't, we still have guys email us that are 35 years old just figuring it out. All right, so we have to figure out which one is better. All right, is it better for a 16-year-old to get this information and at least be armed, or is it better for us to wait until he's 35 and then writing us emails?
Well, Underdog Email got red pilled from at 16 about MGTOW, and he's 22 now, and it's helped him navigate through college. So I think that's a good thing. Because college is
Someone
probably
turn
one
off
of
their
those
speaker.
Yeah, somebody can feedback.
Turn off that speaker, somebody.
Okay.
Hang on.
No, all good, all good. Yeah,